Welcome to Breaking the Barrier, a Western lifestyle podcast highlighting those breaking barriers both in and out of the arena. I'm your host, Rebel Sjeklocha, and today we are continuing the streak of catching up with Nebraska Cowboys. I'm visiting with Gus Franzen. He's a steer wrestler and a Central Nebraska Cowboy and a serious contender for the 2022 Resistol Rookie of the Year title in the steer wrestling. Thanks for being here.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So I guess to start, give people some background on how you got started in rodeo and then how you decided to focus on steer wrestling.
Yeah, well, I'm originally from Kearney, Nebraska, and started rodeo when I was about fourth grade, just going to junior rodeos around Nebraska. Overton Junior Rodeo is actually my first one. And then from there, we just graduated into junior high, then high school. Now I'm college rodeoing and just kind of beginning my way.
Awesome. So when did you kind of start to specialize in terms of events? Because when you're younger, you know, it's fun to experiment with pretty much everything, but you really kind of found your groove in the steer wrestling.
Yeah, at first I definitely wanted to be a team roper, and then about my sophomore year of high school, Bill and Marge Manning from Thedford, Nebraska, they really got the ball rolling on me becoming a steer wrestler. Bill took the time and put some horses underneath me to help me get my start. And from there, I'd say about my senior year of high school is when I started taking steer wrestling a little more serious in my roping events.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we do have a pretty active rodeo community in Nebraska, but it's obviously not quite to the extent of Texas and Oklahoma. And right now, you're college rodeoing in Oklahoma. What kind of influenced that decision, and what has that experience been like for you?
Oh, it's been the best decision I've made for sure, but I kind of decided I wanted to move south somewhere. I didn't have a spot picked out necessarily, but my senior year of high school, I was kind of casually looking at schools, and Southeastern Oklahoma State popped up on my radar, and I came down here and visited. It's in Durant, Oklahoma. I moved down here in the fall of 2019, and I've been here since.
So what has been the biggest learning curve, I guess, as you transition to the college rodeo space, or even just, being in a different place geographically?
Rodeo is definitely an entirely different ball game down here. It's taken a lot more serious, able to do it more year round. So we've gotten to practice a lot more and take it a little more serious. There's always stuff to go to here.
Being in that environment, surrounded by so many people who are taking the sport more seriously, how has that helped you as you've kind of grown in your abilities as a competitor?
Yeah, throughout high school rodeo, I wasn't really sure where I wanted to take rodeo. But after moving down here and being around guys like Sean Mulligan's a Valentine, Nebraska Cowboy, he was a big influencer on me moving down here. Also, getting to practice with guys like Tyler Pearson. He lives about 40 minutes from us. That really helps put it into perspective and make it feel possible for us to compete at the next level.
Yeah. And on that note, you're currently number 4 in the Resistol Rookie of the Year standings. Talk about the year you've had on that front and kind of what your goals are through the rest of the year.
Yeah, I would say my number one goal for 2022 is definitely to win the Resistol Rookie. The PRCA season is really, it's just kind of getting the ball rolling. Rodeos are about to pick up here the first week of May. So I'm looking forward to getting to go to as many as I can afford to, and dang sure put my best effort towards it.
For sure. So I saw a statistic the other day that 80% of all Resistol Rookies of the Year eventually go on to make the NFR. What impact do you think that securing that goal would have on the rest of your career?
It's a great way to recognize the rookies in the pro rodeos. Good way to get their name out there and promote it, able to find sponsors and just have success in the sport.
Definitely. So the steer wrestling is kind of a unique event. how important is it to not only be mounted well, but also to have a hazer that is really familiar and knows how to put that steer in the right spot for you?
Yeah, for sure. I've got a great crew of traveling partners. I travel with Mason Couch, Colton Swearingen, and then Tyler Ravenscroft coming back from an injury in 2 weeks. But we're all pretty much rookies. We're young, and none of us really know what's going on, but we're trying our best. Yeah, we're learning as we go, but I've got one rodeo horse, Skip, bought him from Bill and Marge, and then Mason Couch has also got horses that he lets us mount out on. It's worked really well thus far.
Gotcha. So for people who aren't necessarily familiar with the steer wrestling event, can you kind of break it down and explain the mechanics of everything that goes on, and then also kind of what your hazer has to keep in mind when they're doing their job?
Yeah. Well, you start on the left side of the steer while your hazer's on the right. And it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, you get your hands on the steer and you wrestle them down. It's technique more than anything, but the hazer's job can make or break the entire run. And that's why I'm fortunate to have good hazers.
For sure. So you obviously have had some pretty great mentors as you've, went through the ranks of high school rodeo and now college rodeo and competing in the PRCA. Who are some of those great mentors that have impacted you, and what are some of the pivotal moments that they've done that?
I know I've already mentioned his name twice, but I think Bill and Marge Manning both deserve a lot of credit for everything they've done, not just for me, but the entire slew of bulldoggers growing up in central Nebraska, or really the entire Midwest. For a lot of years, they've put a lot in to Nebraska high school rodeo, especially just trying to grow the sport. And they've had the biggest impact on me getting my start for sure. But since moving down here, I would say also Sean Mulligan's taken us under his wing. And then my coaches down here at Southeastern have been a good influence too, Kyle and Christy Broderick.
Awesome. So we kind of chatted briefly about your goals for the rest of the year. And this might be a bit of a stretch, but as you kind of look ahead to the rest of your career, what are some things that you'd like to accomplish before your steer wrestling career is over?
Yep. This year, behind winning rookie, I'd like to win the college finals in June. I'd also like to make the Prairie Circuit finals is on my list. And then obviously long-term goals, I'm looking to make the finals and then hopefully go buckle one day, but that's down the road.
Yeah, definitely. So what advice would you give to maybe a young steer wrestler or just generally someone who's getting started in a new event? What advice would you give them as they're, getting their start in the rodeo world?
Well, for young steer wrestlers in particular, when I started, I was about 105 or 110 pounds, and I was shoot dogging at the junior rodeos and getting drug around for 30 seconds. It made it not very fun for me and actually made me quit the sport for about 3 years. But just not giving up, I guess, wait until the size comes. For the young steer wrestlers, anyways, and for people in other events, just find a mentor or somebody who knows what they're doing before you do, because it's a hard sport to learn without anybody showing you the ropes.
Yeah. And on that note, there's a lot of technique involved in bulldogging, and it's not just the biggest guy winning necessarily. Talk about the technique that goes into making a good run.
Yes, for sure. And that's one of the things that starting shoot dogging, being a small guy technique was super important growing up. And since I've gained a little size, I feel like that helps me. Technique is a lot of it. Everybody bulldogs differently, just depending on your size or physical build, but technique is definitely crucial.
So besides technique, what does a typical day in the practice pen look like for you, either right before a rodeo or, just when you're really getting after it?
Me and my traveling partners, we try to practice about every day that we can, whether it be at the college or somebody practicing around here. But we have our rodeo horses that we ride a couple of times a week, and then I've also got a practice horse. It just depends on the day, I guess, but
yeah,
just getting reps.
Yeah, and in the steer wrestling, there's a lot of horse sharing that goes on. Talk about the maintenance side of keeping a good bulldogging horse sound and, being able to make those runs continuously through the year.
Yeah, that's something that I've just kind of began to learn about, it seems, is the importance of taking as good a care of your horse as you can. There's a lot that goes into it, and some people do more than others, but in order to keep a horse sound while being on the road all year, I'm learning can be a difficult thing.
So what role have your parents played in your rodeo career, and how have they impacted, where you are now?
Without a support system, this sport can be really tough for sure. My mom and dad have been with me through it all, hauling me to the junior rodeos and high school rodeos, and now that I'm in college, they still don't miss very much. I can't tell them how much I appreciate everything that they do for me, both inside and outside of the arena.
Awesome. So as we kind of wrap up today, what's one piece of advice that you'd like to pass on to other people?
When it comes to rodeoing, it sounds cliche, but you just got to keep entering. You can't get better if you don't go to the rodeos. One awesome thing about rodeo is that there's different levels of it, and you can do with it what you want. You can be a weekend warrior and just go when you want, or you can take this sport as serious as you can and try and do it for a living. You can find yourself somewhere in the middle and just have fun with it.
Yeah. So kind of circling back a little ways, you mentioned that your decision to college rodeo, and specifically where you're college rodeoing, was one of the best decisions that you've made. How would you advise a senior that's high school rodeoing now? What advice would you give them when it comes to exploring the different programs that are out there and then making a decision of where they'd like to continue?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of college rodeo, no matter what level you compete at. That's one of the awesome things about it, is there's kids there that are simply just there to make friends and have fun, and there's kids that the competition is the only thing on their mind. I find myself somewhere in the middle, but I think one of the more important things about college rodeo is just making those friendships and having a good time along the way.
Well, thank you for making some time today and letting me hound you with questions.
No, I appreciate you doing it.
Well, once again, that was Gus Franzen, Central Nebraska cowboy and contender for the Resistol Rookie of the Year title in the steer wrestling. That's all for this week's episode. You can find all previous episodes, including episodes with more Nebraska professional rodeo cowboys, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Breaking the Barrier is produced by the Rural Radio Network.